What will I see, I wonder? She's about to unzip. Am I going to see that lizard beneath?
Eavesdroppin.
Well, hello there, Michelle.
Are we doing a singing intro
Singing right in.
to Eavesdroppin Comedy Podcast?
.com. Love that. It's a little jazzy, a little smooth, a little mellow.
Freestyling it.
Is that how you're feeling, Michelle? And eavesdroppers alike?
I'm feeling a little bit hot.
Hot and bothered. You're wearing a fleece.
I am wearing a fleece because
28
sometimes
degrees.
but I like being warm.
Oh.
I'm a cold person that likes to be warm.
You're a cold-hearted bitch. Is that what you mean to say?
Oh my God.
No, what you mean is you're a cold-blooded person.
Cold-bodied.
Like a lizard.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
I'm reptilian.
Are you sure that you're not full reptile and you're actually an alien?
If you unzip me
Right.
from top to bottom, you'll find lizard person inside.
Is that true?
Probably.
That's why you're so into V and all those lizard alien shows.
I'm not into V. I haven't watched V.
You cannot
since the
stop talking about
80s.
it.
Oh my God, I tell you what, we need to bloody introduce ourselves. This has gone too far already.
I'm Geordie.
And I'm Michelle. You are listening, if you hadn't realised from the song, you're listening to Eavesdroppin, the comedy podcast, and you're an eavesdropper because you're eavesdropping on us.
Yes, exactly. And that is your job. And that's what you need to do right now for the next 40 to 50 minutes, including ads, which we advise you fast forward through.
Oh!
What? You're not supposed to. Do we not get paid if they do that?
I don't know, but don't tell them that.
Oh.
We might get shadow banned or blackballed or...
Oh, no.
Oh, you never know.
Have I broken it?
It's okay.
Have I broken our ability to make a couple of pennies from this podcast?
I don't know. People do it anyway.
Of course they do.
Do as you wish.
Do as you like. You might even find a new product. I hear that there's financial services adverts coming out in some countries. I hear that there's mental health help. All sorts of things. Holidays.
All the good stuff.
Other podcasts. Don't listen to them, though. Listen to
No.
us.
Listen to us. So, have you got any podcast rec, telly recs?
No, but I do have a listener who didn't write in. I bumped into him at a very fancy 60th birthday. It wasn't fancy. It was just a pub. At a 60th birthday party the other night.
Mm-hmm.
An old friend of mine. And when I say old, I mean old. Joseph Carkery, forgive me. Joe, he loves the podcast and he's a listener. He's really enjoying himself. He's damaged his little arm. He's had a bit of an issue. He's damaged his working arm currently, so he can't do much. I'm hoping he can wipe his bum. It's his right hand. He's right-handed. He's done some cartilage damage. Sorry about that, Joe. Hope you feel better soon. He wanted to know, Michelle, a bit about our process. He was asking me over drinks, how do we find our stories? And I said, well, people write in. People write in and they advise us. They lead us down the right direction. I've had a bunch of stuff recently from Ren, the researcher, we call her. Used to be a scriptwriter in LA. Now she's sending me absolutely insane true crime stories. A lot of them that involve removing of eyeballs. So I'm not really sure I'm going to do them. But thanks, Ren.
Send them to me. I'll do them.
I don't know if I want to sit here and listen to you telling me those stories.
I love a gory, gruesome true crime
Maybe
story.
I will pass them on. But yes, people write in. And I said this to Joe. And also, I said, I do, browse the internet. Fortean Times is a great place for the supernatural and the UFOs and the aliens. And then we've got things like Reddit. And I sign up to, I think it's called Medium. They send me lots of lovely true crime horror stories, which most of the time I just skip through. And then there's social media. We get them from all round. I said to Joe, what would you like to hear, Joe? He said he'd love a true crime story, something to do with the seaside, because it's summer here in the UK.
Oh my God, just to terrify you from going to the seaside. He wants a grisly murder of a body washed up on a surfboard or something. Jeez.
Oh, gosh. Okay.
I mean, I don't know if that's even a real thing. I tell you what, we can dig into it. We can find it because we aim to please.
There's actually been a few that have popped up since he said that. So I think my phone has been listening to my conversations. I mean, Kel Surprise.
Of course. Your phone is always fucking listening.
At least someone is. Are you still there, eavesdroppers?
Oh!
Tell that to my husband.
Maybe they've all tuned out. Well, what have I got? I've got, still on the telly rec for the DCC, the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders. I'm obsessed, and I had a Texan couple come into the restaurant the other night.
Did you do them a little cheerleading dance?
I said, howdy, y'all.
Did you?
And I said, I love the DCC. And they were thrilled.
I'm so happy that they were thrilled.
And they left a big tip.
Oh, that's good. You worked for that.
I did. The DCC helped me. Oh, and I've been having a bit of a giggle with a podcast wreck. We've talked about these boys before, the Inspired Unemployed.
Oh, yes.
They are those ex-tradies who became
internet stars or something.
Internet stars, TV stars.
And they went to school with my brother.
Exactly, those boys. Yeah. So they have a podcast, and I do get a giggle from them. And they were ranking.
I've never listened to it.
Oh, you must. I'll pop it in the Patreon links. And if you're not a Patreon member, why the bloody hell not?
Oh, here we go.
So rude.
Yep, abuse.
Just pop a coin in the... I don't want to say slot anymore.
You say it easily, just as easily as I do. Just pop a coin in the slot and wind us up and watch us go. Yes, Patreon.
There's
a place where you can go. Sorry, I didn't realize that we were giving the address. Michelle, you can give the address because I always forget it. Patreon.com/eavesdroppin.
Eavesdroppin podcast.
Yes. And then I was going to say it's a place where you can go if you're into what you're hearing right now. And if you want to know more about the things that we talk about. If you want to know where our research comes from, Joe Carcree, you might want to pop a coin in the slot and find out a bit more. There's also extra stuff, interviews, videos,
thoughts and theories, and just
community,
random stuff.
Yeah, it's a place to be if you're an eavesdropper. If you consider yourself an eavesdropper, then you need to pop that coin in that slot.
It's also a very nice way to support us, and we do very much appreciate it.
You give, we give back.
So what I'm going to put on this week's Rex is the Inspired Unemployed, because they did this thing where on a recent episode, they ranked all the cities in Australia from worst to best.
Right.
Guess what came in as worst?
I'd say Canberra.
Yes, it is. And I just felt so bad for poor old Canberra because...
Well, it's got a lot going for it apart from that. You know, it's got the parliament and stuff. It's got some nice museums and galleries. Lots of national things there.
Yes, I know. I do get a giggle from these boys.
What was the top city? Melbourne.
They both ranked them, and one of them said Sydney, the other said Melbourne.
Okay.
Like,
where does Hobart come?
People love Hobart. People love Tasmania. Yes.
I've never been there.
I like Tasmania. I think it's a lovely place that's very much its own thing, actually.
Right. I'd love to try it out. Would they rank places like Newcastle and Wollongong as cities?
No, they're just doing the big ones.
The A-list.
Perth,
Adelaide,
Darwin, Brisbane, Sydney, Canberra,
Hobart,
Melbourne,
Brisbane. Yeah, all
Hobart.
of those.
Yep.
The biggies.
Exactly.
Well, that's fun.
Unfortunately, the viewers at home won't be able to see this.
The viewers?
What did I say? Viewers. Listeners.
Yeah.
Listeners. The listeners won't be able, our eavesdroppers won't be able to see this because we haven't had any feedback yet about whether or not you want to see our gorgeous faces on video. But I will show you, Geordie.
What will I see, I wonder? She's about to unzip. Am I going to see that lizard beneath?
You're going to see these two little cherries, summer cherries.
Oh, what?
Here. No, you're not. There's no nudity. No nudes here. No nudes here.
Okay, thank God.
No, I received a parcel from a very good friend and eavesdropper, Felicity. Shout out to Felice. In my parcel of goodies, she sent me this.
Oh, it's an eavesdropping key ring.
It is our first ever eavesdropping merch.
How did she make that? Did she get the badge pressing thing that we keep talking about? We need to make more of those. I want one. Thank you, Felicity.
I think what you can do is buy these kind of...
She's printed it out, cut it out.
Cut it out, and then you can pop it into one of these open and clip kind of close key rings. Perspex. But I was absolutely thrilled, and I thought, bloody hell, I love that.
That's incredible.
I love that our eavesdroppers are making merch for us.
For us. Thank you. This is a cooperative.
Oh, God.
Thank you so much, Felicity. I really love that, and it's inspired me. So we'll get cracking on that front. I know we keep talking about it, but we will.
We do keep talking about it, only for 5 years. Anyway. Oh, you ding-a-ling.
Oh, you ding-a-ling.
Speaking of eavesdroppers, we had eavesdropper Monique write in. She sent me a link to a story, and the headline is, "A woman found 200 speakers screaming on Mount Shasta and nobody knows why."
What? Where's Mount Shasta?
It is in the States. It's kind of California.
Okay. When they say screaming, does that mean like feeding back, or is it just
Screeching.
like a loop of people screaming?
Screeching.
Okay, so it's not human screams.
No, it's screeching. It's white noise.
Like,
There's, yep, around 200 solar-powered Bluetooth speakers planted in the ground.
Oh, my Lord. That's an art installation.
And there were things that were between a static sound and screaming. There was also one that was playing like a sermon with a voice repeating itself, which said salvation, salvation.
Oh, this is an art installation or some sort of game or some sort of meta project. Spencer McCall, get in touch. You've been in touch before when we did the story on Nowhere. Dispatches from Nowhere. Dispatches from elsewhere.
Somewhere. Dispatches from whatever.
Elsewhere.
Well, look, the internet's been going crazy about this, saying, well, maybe it's like sounds to try and attract Bigfoot. Maybe it's some kind of cult ritual. Maybe they're trying to deter the wolves that roam around there.
Or is it something to do with aliens? Now, I got something wrong. Shari had to write back in again after last couple of weeks ago that Steven Spielberg's new film is not called Disclosure. No.
Yes.
It's Disclosure Day, you dum-dum.
I did
I'm
put
talking to myself.
it correctly on the Patreon.
Yeah, I left some out. I'm seeing a lot of things on the social medias, which I always take with a pinch of salt. But this one Australian guy who is I can't name check him because I can't remember and I didn't save it. He's a journalist and he said, you won't believe the things that I get to hear. People tell me all sorts of things and I can't always report it back because it could be dangerous. For example, years ago, an Australian high-ranking military man told me all the Aussie troops were about to be deployed to Iraq for, previous war. And if I'd said anything, that would have really screwed things up. He said, the amount of things I hear and know about disclosure and what's coming and the alien things going on behind the scenes, and I'm not going to say anything now, he said, could be catastrophic. He said it's catastrophic disclosure.
Jesus.
Or something. He said that if the public knew what was really
going on,
the extent of it, well, he referenced something like plasma weapons. He said if the public knew that, for example, and I'm not saying this is real, him again, that we had plasma weapons, shit'd go off. It would go nuts, things would go terribly wrong. Banks would collapse and societies would collapse and as we know it, that kind of stuff he was saying. Is it just, fear tactics, scaremongering? I don't know. It's always interesting to think about it. But Michelle, I am of the opinion that there are not 6-foot Nordic aliens or greys with almond eyes or the lizard where you come from, your people, the lizards. I actually think it's something that probably, maybe it has arrived and it's living amongst us right now on our skin because it's a tiny little thing that's come in on a comet and it's just an annoying rash.
Right.
Or a little toot in the air or something. I don't know. It's just not going to look the way we think it's going to look. It's not going to be the way we think it's going to be because of the scientific way that it's formed. Life on Earth is formed this way. But it's formed a different way on other planets or in other solar systems or in other, cosmos.
I mean, I do agree that it's probably not going to look the way we think it looks.
It's not humanoid.
No, but all of this stuff, I have to say, the older I get, the more I just don't want to think about it. I don't want to know about it. I want to live in my bubble and enjoy my life. I don't want to know about the plasma weapons. I don't really want to know about any of it until it actually happens. And then I'll just be like, okay, take me. I'm ready. Otherwise, the anxiety.
Yeah, you don't need the anxiety in your life. There's enough of that going on in the world.
And the stress.
Yeah.
And the worry of when and how and who and why, all of the W words. Like, no, I just don't want it.
Do you remember that show from the 80s? In Australia, the science program, Curiosity, wondering which, where and how, I want to know.
Curiosity Show.
The Curiosity
That's how it
Show.
ended. Yes.
I didn't remember that bit.
If I've got it wrong, tell me, but I'm going to try and find a link to
link.
those opening credits.
Sorry, I shut you down as you were going into your basically shutting down of any anxiety related to disclosure.
Well,
and aliens actually being real.
You know what? There are people who put their hand up for these jobs in life. They want to be behind the scenes. They're in NASA and governments and all the kind of stuff. I didn't. I put my hand up for podcasting. And it's enough, and the rest of it, I'll just happily walk on a mountain. And if a comet comes and I didn't know about it, better for me.
Fantastic. Well, with that in mind, Michelle, I have been feeling drawn to the supernatural, the paranormal, etc. And I did have a little flick. Not through the Chambers Dictionary of the Unexplained, mind you. Thank you to Lucy and Jane. Well, actually, Jane Beacon.
Yes.
I think it was theirs growing up. I'm not sure. Together, Jane and Lucy Beacon. Thank you. I've actually just gone through some back issues of what I mentioned earlier. One of my favourite sources of stories for this podcast, the 40 Times. I really think they should start the TV show again, but get rid of Father, what's his name? The vicar. Fotheringay or whatever his name was. Get us in. We'd be a great host for the 14 Times.
Let's pitch
TV
it.
show.
Jane Beacon, give us some ideas on how we can pitch that TV show.
Well, I've sent them an email, but they didn't respond.
Bastards.
They don't know what they're missing.
Well, maybe they do. Maybe they listened and went block.
Get fucked. So, thanks to the 14 Times. Thanks for nothing apart from all the great stories, of course. I have found a fabulous story for you today, Michelle. And it's real life and supernatural.
Okay, no true crime.
Well, no.
Oh,
I don't believe there is true crime.
okay.
I can't remember. Let's hear it as if it's fresh. I do know the story. I did put it together from information from the 14 Times, as I said, and other sources. I'll tell you later. It's about a man called Dr. Donald Omand. Now, I keep getting his name wrong. I keep thinking it's Omand, like Julia Ormond, the actress from the noughties and the 90s.
Yeah.
Where is she now? And Oban, or Victor Oban, or the place in Scotland called Oban.
Oh, they do great whiskey.
I keep thinking it's either of those things. So I'm just going to call him Donald, and sometimes I call him Don Don for fun.
Because why not? In fact, I want to just call him Dong Dong. I want to put a G on there.
Well, you don't know him. That's disrespectful. That's talking about his privates.
No. It's just there's a Chinese
Dong Dong.
restaurant in Sydney, Dong Dong's.
Oh, so good they named it twice.
Well, yes, and I don't generally enjoy Chinese food, but Dong Dong's is an exception. So when you say Don Don, I just have to think Dong Dong's. Shout out to Dong Dong's in, where is it?
Somewhere in Sydney, Michelle's forgotten. Well, every time I say Don Don, you can remember all the lovely pancake rolls and spring rolls and golden bags and things that you've shoved in your gob over the years at Dong Dong's.
I will. My mouth's watering already.
Meanwhile, Dr. Donald Omand was a Scottish Anglican vicar. I love those Scottish Anglican vicars. They always have something a little spooky about them, don't you think?
I think that's better than having something a little creepy. And you know what I'm talking about when it comes to vicars.
Let's just park that.
Yes.
Born in Perth in 1903, he was a softly spoken man and apparently very ordinary. I don't know what's ordinary about a vicar, though, especially this one, who over the course of his life claimed to battle not just vampires, Michelle, but phantom black dogs, cursed roads, sea monsters, and even the Bermuda Triangle itself.
Honestly, this is eavesdropping fodder. Tick, 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 tick. All of it.
Tell me about it. This is the story of perhaps Britain's strangest exorcist and real-life demon hunter, Dr. Donald Omand. Oh, I've said it wrong. Omand.
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 Do you know what? You just got to say Dr. O. That's enough.
Dr. O. I'm calling him Don, and that's it.
Dong Dong O.
Don grew up surrounded by stories of the supernatural. His father and grandfather were both Presbyterian ministers, and his family roots stretched back to the Orkney Islands, which is steeped in Norse legend and Celtic folklore. And that's already reminding me of Widow's Bay, another TV recommendation on Apple TV, which is on an island as well.
Not Widow's Peak.
Island. Not Widow's Peak, as I kept saying. Right. Donald was heavily influenced, though, by his mother, Margaret Omand, who claimed to possess the sight, aka psychic ability that meant she could see visions and events happening far away. Now, we've talked about that before on the podcast, not her, but of the sight, of remote viewing and things like that. Donald would later become convinced that his gift was real, thanks to events like this, Michelle. During the First World War, a family friend, her name's Mrs. Scott, she was visiting the Omand household when Donald's mother, Margaret, suddenly became hysterical. Without warning, she's screaming and making quite a fuss, and she's screaming out, "Ray is coming down in flames! He's in flames!" And then she collapsed.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, Mrs. Scott was particularly horrified at this display because her son, Ray, was serving with the Royal Flying Corps.
Oh, no.
Days later, the family learned that tragically Ray had indeed been shot down on the very same day that Margaret Omand had experienced her vision.
Oh, no.
You don't really want to be friends with her.
No, you don't, because you don't want to know your son just died because she's just had
You don't want that to be the news and have her screaming in front of you.
No, because she's obviously seeing it and witnessing it, and it's been overwhelming, and she's
like
just...
an empath.
Oh, God. Yeah, you want to be friends with her, but you kind of don't.
Just keep your distance from Maggie Omand. Another incident convinced Donald even further. And this is about him. Because as a child, he nearly drowned while he was swimming. And his older brother managed to drag him from the water and made him promise not to tell their father. Because obviously they were going to get in big trouble for this. Oh, he almost died. But, his brother saved the day. Blah, blah, blah. So the boys went home, made a story up. Right, this is what we're going to say. No, you're fine. We're a bit late, but that's okay. Yes, you look shocked and you're a bit traumatized, but just say that you saw a shark or something. It's fine. When the boys arrived home, their father was not there because he was already searching for them. Why? Because back at home, Margaret Omand had suddenly turned pale and cried out, "My lad is drowning!"
Oh, God. Okay.
As far as Don was concerned, that was enough. These experiences weren't coincidences, but proof of something beyond our five senses.
Have you ever nearly drowned?
I have been caught up in things. I mean, I spent a lot of time in seawater as a child, growing up on a beach. I have had incidences where I've been too far out and got a cramp.
Oh.
I have had incidences where, I think I've told you before, when my dad ran out of petrol in a little boat and tipped my brother and I out of the boat and made us swim to shore. Did I tell you that?
Oh, God, no, but that is horrific.
And it was a long way. And I was 12 and he was 9.
Oh, shit.
Towards the end, he was in front of me. It was a beautiful day. You could see right to the bottom. It was like Mediterranean-style waters. And there's a huge stingray. And my brother didn't see it. He just trod on its back and I was screaming.
No. Oh, my God.
And I've been caught up in rips and things and, been dumped and had to just be tumble washed all the way to the shore washing machine.
Yep.
All of that stuff, but not where I've had to be pulled out of the bottom of a pool and given mouth to mouth. I've never been given mouth to mouth. Have you?
No, but Jen had to pull me out of a pool. We were Dixon Pool. No, it was Jamison Pool. And I was young, toddler. And Mum had 4 kids under the age of 5 or something.
That's a handful.
I had a floaty ring. And I remember so clearly, my thought process was, I'll jump in the deep end and I'll just put my arms out because then when I go through the ring, I'll just catch it. But of course, I went straight through that donut. I went straight through the middle of that floaty ring. And Mum saw, and fully clothed, she just jumped in because I'm just sitting on the bottom of the pool going,
oh, on the deep end.
What happened? And
oh my God.
So that was quite bad. And then another time we were at the Lake Ginninderra, and I don't know where Mum was, but we had this...
No shade, Jen. We knew you were around somewhere. You were there. You weren't at home watching videos.
She was probably running after my brother. We'd gotten one of these free Kentucky Fried Chicken floaty kind of lilos. They're not the highest of quality. And we went right out into the middle of Lake Ginninderra and it just deflated.
Oh.
A little bit like your story. I wasn't strong enough to swim all the way back and I really thought, I'm done.
Yeah.
Like, this is it for me. And I actually don't remember how I got back.
Sheer strength of will, I'd say. Will to survive.
Yeah, but it was really scary. And of course, there's been times on the surfboard where I've been dumped and hit on the head and thinking, oh, I don't know what's up or down or sideways. But water is powerful and it's quite scary.
It is, yeah. Well, listen, I'm going back to Donald now.
Yes.
Later in his life, when he was at university, a fellow student confided that a respected professor at the university was sexually abusing him.
No.
Now, Donald, with this knowledge, just kept it to himself. But then one day he walked into a room and found that professor looming over his terrified friend. Don felt the atmosphere was off. He felt it was somewhat heavy and very oppressive. As Donald was standing there, the professor turned to Donald and snarled, "Go away!" Donald didn't even know what came over him. He didn't have time to think, but immediately he cried out, much like Margaret, "Get thee behind me, Satan!"
Oh, my God.
Yeah, and that's when the atmosphere changed and the professor seemed to kind of collapse inwardly before slinking out of the room, and he never bothered that student again.
Wow. He knew he'd been busted.
Well, not just busted. I think that what Donald thought was, it was a turning point for him. He became obsessed with understanding what had happened. For him, it wasn't just he got caught. It was more than that.
He was possessed by positive spirits to banish the evil.
He felt a dark presence and he had the power to expel it.
Yes.
So that was where he was coming from. He felt he had confronted evil himself, and that was it. He was sold. He'd always wanted to follow the family tradition, though, and enter the church, but his dad wasn't so happy about that because he wanted his son to experience ordinary life first. So he convinced Donald to work as a journalist. So off Donald went and found himself working as a foreign correspondent in Germany during the rise of the Nazi Party.
Oh, God.
And he got an interview with guess who, Michelle?
No.
Adolf Hitler.
Himself.
Yeah, not just once, but 3 times.
Bloody hell.
Oh, yeah. This is the rise of the party, right?
Yeah.
Years later, when asked if he sensed evil in Hitler at that time, he said no, he was just a deeply unhappy and lonely man. And he said he seemed strangely empty, almost as though part of his personality was missing. But then later, Donald attended the Nuremberg rallies, which is where, all the uprising kind of happened and the Sieg Heiling. Something changed. The troubled man he'd interviewed was gone and it was replaced by something quite different. And Donald later wrote that Hitler seemed possessed by something much more powerful than the man he had previously met. It was a force of overwhelming darkness.
Interesting.
That's Donald's point of view, of course. At this point, Donald began his studies of religion, philosophy and spiritual traditions in earnest, in addition to being ordained as a Church of England vicar. Then the case came along that launched his reputation. He's still in Germany.
Okay.
And he had become friendly with traveling circus performers. And they asked him to do the deeds of could you, as a vicar or, ordained minister, we're traveling all the time. We've got babies being born. We've got people being married. Could you just bless them? Could you christen? Could you come with us for a little while and do this and that? And he got himself a bit of a reputation as helping the traveling folk, the carnies, if you like, or whatever.
The travellers.
The travelling peeps. They're not travellers as such. They're circus performers, not travellers because that's a gypsy in Ireland.
Okay.
So one time a ringmaster approached him with a bit of a problem that had occurred within their circus. They had this gentle giant strongman, but overnight he had changed into a violent brute and was causing serious problems within the circus. The ringmaster believed that there was an occasion that had caused this, right? He said that this strongman, a few days before this happened, had wandered into a church, but out the front of the church there was this weird bunch of people performing what seemed to be a mock version of the Holy Communion. And the strong man eventually became convinced that he'd witnessed a black mass because they were very creepy. They looked him in the eye as he left because he went in there to pray and stuff. On the way out, he felt this ominous kind of thing going on. And afterwards, his behavior just changed. He was swearing up and down. He was aggressive. He was kicking children at the circus. And then, this is terrible, at a performance for the circus, he kind of staggered towards the lion cage. Now, the lions were doing a show with their trainer, and he kind of shook the bars and wound them up, and then he collapsed unconscious on the ground. The lions were out. They then turned on their trainer at the moment that he passed out and mauled him to death in front of a horrified crowd.
Oh, my God.
Yep.
Oh, that's awful.
So the ringmaster of the circus was convinced that whatever evil had infected the strongman had somehow kind of jumped into the animals in that moment that he passed out. So he begged Donald, please, can you perform an exorcism? So Donald, understandably terrified but determined to sort this out, got inside the lion's cage and all fear vanished. He raised his hand, recited the ritual in Latin and English, and gradually these snarling lions settled. And then to everyone's amazement, they calmly climbed down from their pedestals and padded away. Donald believed he had just performed his first successful exorcism on lions.
Supernatural. Ghost is in a wall. Supernatural. Poltergeist at all. Supernatural. We are chatting supernatural. Supernatural.
That's amazing. And I have to say, it brings me to a story that Andreas told me yesterday. It's not an exorcism, just a really, really sad story of a Swedish policeman was on holiday in Copenhagen. He witnessed some arguments after one of the World Cup football, and he stepped in to help break up this argument, and they killed him.
Oh, my God.
And I just think sometimes it's people's nature to want to go in and help. This guy obviously had no fear, a little bit like your guy. He stepped into that lion's ring, Don, and had no fear. But it could have all gone horribly wrong for him. And thank goodness it didn't. But I have to say, that story Andreas told me, it really has stayed with me. And it's so upsetting.
Things got a bit stranger for Don. There was one place that had always haunted him since he was a child. There's a lonely stretch of Yorkshire's coastline called Loch Ness, and he had visited as a boy. Had you know it?
No, but I should know it because I know Yorkshire coastline quite well.
He'd been there as a boy, and he was overwhelmed by a feeling that he later described as an aroma of corruption.
Oh.
Years later, when he read Bram Stoker's Dracula, he was shocked to find out that Loch Ness was repeatedly mentioned in that book.
Right.
And that connection stayed with him. And so in the 1950s, when a distressed school teacher got in contact, claiming that he and his friends had encountered an enormous black hound on the beach in Loch Ness, he had to get involved. Here's an excerpt from Donald's biography, which is called To Anger the Devil by Mark Alexander. On visiting Loch Ness, a schoolmaster and two friends all experienced a wave of terror when, looking over to the shore to the misty sea, they had seen a huge hound, so large it could not be mortal, appear out of thin air. Silent with shock, they watched it move towards them before disappearing as silently and mysteriously as it had come. All three were left with such a strong sense of evil that the schoolmaster believed it was a case desperately in need of exorcism. So who else would they reach out to but our Don? And of course, he bravely travelled immediately to Yorkshire. He arrived on the beach that night, armed with a bottle of holy water, standing on the shore with that teacher. The teacher then suddenly grabbed Donald's arm, and there before them, they both saw what they described as a gigantic black hound. Now, the school teacher just fled in terror, but Donald stood his ground because the creature was charging towards him, and as so, he sprinkled his holy water and commanded it to leave in the name of Christ. I just want to say something at this point.
I'm just like,
I know.
What the hell?
Just a quick segue, because it reminds me of my husband's uncle, Uncle Andrew, who has appeared on the Patreon. And you'll know how he speaks like this.
Yes.
I command you to leave at once. He's quite dramatic. He calls himself the great dramatist, actually. So I'm imagining Uncle
Andrew.
Uncle Andrew doing all this. But in Donald's words, here we are. Uncorking the bottle of holy water, which I was carrying, I commanded the spectre as follows. Begone in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ. Begone to the place appointed to you, there to remain forever. Begone in the name of Christ. So many times saying Christ, that seems to be the trick. As I spoke the last words, I splashed holy water in the direction of the apparition, and the latter disappeared as suddenly as it had materialized. Then I exorcised all the ground which the spectre had covered, and a great heaviness went out of the atmosphere. The menace of Loch Ness was ended. Now, I love this about Donald. He always believes that once he's done the thing, it's finished. It's done. I fixed it.
Was it true?
Well, as far as he's concerned, yes, it was. I don't know if anybody else wants to write in and say they've been to Loch Ness and seen a giant dog and been scared the bejesus out of them. I don't know.
Write in.
Write in. He reckons the whole atmosphere changed around him. The oppressive feeling he'd been sensing even since childhood, that had gone. But sadly for the teacher, he never recovered. He unfortunately suffered a complete mental breakdown after this evening, and eventually he would die in psychiatric care.
Oh, my God.
I know.
Okay, that was a bit of a casualty there. Whoops.
But this, for Donald, was proof that places could be just as possessed as people. But then came the vampire. You'll love this one, Michelle.
This guy, it all happens for this guy, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah. He's had a long and varied life. In the 50s, Donald joined an organisation investigating bizarre psychiatric cases. Now, I'm only going to say this once, and then I'm going to call it by the letters. It's called the Organisation of Inquiry into Psychical Disorder.
Okay.
OIPD from now on. This was an actual group of psychiatrists and physicians investigating bizarre cases that seemed to fall outside of conventional medicine. And Donald started to receive cases that most doctors simply couldn't explain. For example, a Swedish psychiatrist approached Donald with a patient unlike any he had encountered. This young man was just 24 years old, but for 7 years, he'd insisted he was a vampire. He genuinely believed he needed human blood.
Oh my God, Scott, a cannibalin.
Well, exactly. It's from Sweden after all. Apparently began when he was 17 and he was living at boarding school at the time. One night while all the other boys slept peacefully, I don't know why I'm laughing, it's awful, in their dormitory, he crept between the beds, climbed onto one of his classmates and sunk his teeth into the boy's neck.
Oh my God.
The boy woke screaming and the other boys dragged the attacking boy away before he could do any more damage. And remarkably, nobody reported this incident. Just brush that under the carpet. Why not?
Well, they need the school fees.
Well, they might have been embarrassed.
Don't
exactly.
rock the boat.
8 weeks later, it happened again, but this time with such force that he ripped a deep gash in another pupil's throat. You couldn't hide this one.
Oh, you got to get that guy out of the school. He's done.
Victim was rushed to hospital and the guy was taken to psychiatric care, which is how OIPD found out about him. But the violence continued because within weeks of his arrival in the psychiatric unit, he'd attacked a male nurse, once again aiming for the neck. So eventually this guy's wealthy parents moved him to an exclusive private clinic in Scandinavia somewhere, hoping specialists could help him where everyone else had failed. Instead, more staff were bitten, drawing blood.
Oh,
so
God.
This psychiatrist presenting the case to Donald admitted he didn't really believe in vampires. He just felt that this was a mental illness. Fair enough.
Right.
But there was one disturbing detail they couldn't shake, which was that some of the staff members who'd been bitten reportedly developed an unusual fascination with blood themselves after being bit.
Oh, my God.
I mean, this could be psychological suggestion, shared delusion, or
Yes.
something stranger, but no one could explain it. But to Donald, he knew exactly what was going on. It's not psychiatry, it's possession. So off to Scandinavia he went to meet with this young lad. And he arrived after dark with 2 doctors from OIPD. And the next morning, they took him to meet the patient. But instead of some wild-eyed monster chained to a bed, Donald found this intelligent young man quietly sitting in an armchair reading a magazine. So as he stood to greet everyone, Donald found him to be calm and well-spoken, perfect gentleman. And the only thing that Donald noticed was that his handshake felt a bit cold and clammy. We've all felt one of those, haven't we? It's always a bit unpleasant.
Yeah.
But then the patient asked, could I speak to Donald alone, please? And the staff said, fuck no. You're a biter. That's not going to happen. But Donald said he would remain in the room with the door slightly open and that way they could talk alone. Mm-hmm. So the young man smiled at Donald and took a step closer and said, I want to whisper something.
Ah!
Donald leaned in, you dumb Donald. Suddenly, fingernails ripped across his face. His lips split open and blood was pouring down his chin. And as the blood showed up, the patient lunged towards it with his tongue out, trying to lick it off of Donald's face.
Oh, my God. What was he thinking? Come on, Donald.
Silly Donald. He later described an overwhelming smell coming from the patient. He said it wasn't body odor or bad breath. He said it was the aroma of, what now? Corruption that he talked about earlier.
Oh, corruption. I thought it was just going to be evil.
Aroma of corruption. It's a favourite of Donald's. He said it was the same smell he smelt years before on that beach at Loch Ness.
Right. So did he have his holy water with him?
No, but 2 nurses burst in and got the kid away from him. Donald was taken to the infirmary, had his face stitched up, and he was thrilled because that smell just confirmed everything for him. He knew that this was a supernatural presence that he knew how to get rid of. because he'd done it before. He devised a run of vampire experiments, which they did for this guy. They held a mirror up to him. He reflected perfectly normal. They sprinkled him with holy water. Nothing really happened. He didn't really recoil or anything. He just rubbed it into his face and said, oh, that's rather soothing. And then Donald devised a blind taste test where the hospital kitchen supplied fresh animal blood and some volunteers donated human blood. And both were poured into identical coffee cups.
Okay.
Then the patient became really excited when he realized that blood had been brought into the room, and he picked up the first cup, raised it to his lips,
Yes.
paused, then walked over to the sink and poured it away. Then Donald handed him the second cup, and this time there was no hesitation. He drank every drop.
Yep. The human. He could tell what was human, what was animal.
He knew. He absolutely knew. I guess he's had a taste for it.
Yeah.
We just don't know if this is evidence of extraordinary perception or subconscious recognition or just a story that changes with the retelling. You decide, Michelle. And eavesdroppers, of course. But now it was time for Donald to exorcise. 3 witnesses gathered while Donald placed blessed salts and holy water on a table and began his prayers. The young man just watched, just bored a bit, you know.
Yeah.
Until Donald reached a particular line in the Roman ritual saying, strike terror, O Lord, into the wild beast rooting up thy vine. According to Donald, that moment changed everything, and the patient erupted into violence and attempted to not just bite Donald, but fucking kill him.
Right.
So the nurses had to pin him into a chair while the doctors sedated him. But Donald carried on praying until the ritual was complete, and afterwards, apparently, the attack stopped. And months later, the clinic informed him the patient had been discharged and was living quietly with his parents in rural Norway.
Oh.
Apparently, yes. So whether it cured him or the medication finally worked, who knows? But that wasn't his last encounter with vampires. But I'm going to save that other story for the Patreon. There's going to be a few more Don stories over on Patreon this month.
www.eavesdroppinpodcast.com. Hello at eavesdroppinpodcast.com. Email us a story.
Share, like, all of that.
Follow our social media.
Like, subscribe.
Instagram and Facebook.
Yep, you know what you
At
do.
eavesdroppin_.
You got that right.
Eavesdroppin. G.
Yep.
I'm just going to skip now to one of the most famous incidences in Donald's career of exorcising a place, because the BBC were here for this one and you can find film of it. It was Loch Ness, because Donald was convinced that the Loch Ness monster, aka Nessie, wasn't merely an undiscovered creature of the deep or an ex-dinosaur or whatever, or an animal. He suspected it was a spiritual manifestation, perhaps even a dragon-like entity that's linked to darker forces. So in 1973, he organised an unprecedented ritual using a map. Him and a Benedictine monk created an enormous, because, you know, you've got to just have one on hand, created an enormous invisible crucifix across the loch on boats, like bop, 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 all around the loch, which is huge, and then positioned themselves at the centre of this imaginary cross. They would then sail to the exact point where all the arms of the cross were extended. And while they were floating above, you know, hundreds of feet of dark water, Donald would perform the final rite. There was a photographer present and a military officer and several researchers with him. And as the day progressed, witnesses described a growing sense of tension. And then when the final prayer ended, Donald nearly collapsed from exhaustion, which in his mind meant that the ritual had worked.
Right. Okay.
And afterwards he said, no, that's it, done. It's gone. Not only that, but the heavy presence of the area is also gone, guys. So whatever's been causing all of the locals around here to be hitting the bottle and not doing very well socioeconomically, etc., that's all fixed now as well, is what Donald thought. Yeah.
And?
Well, the locals were a bit they rolled their eyes a bit. But, you know, Donald did have a little bit of a point about the dark energy, because we do know of an occultist who bought Boleskine Manor, which is on the banks of Loch Ness. And that's Aleister Crowley. We've done a story about what happened at Boleskine Manor.
Yes, and that was after the early 70s.
Oh, it was much earlier, much earlier. Crowley was a young man. So it wasn't just because he liked the scenery.
Yes, of course.
I think perhaps maybe he knew there was something darker lurking there.
Dark energy.
I've got one more story for you now. The rest of my Don stories are going to be parked over at Patreon, like I said earlier. It's the Bermuda Triangle, because he was so successful at the Loch Ness exorcism. Because he was sailing near the region one time, he felt he'd heard something beneath the sound of the wind and the waves. Something really disturbing, Michelle. He heard hundreds of voices crying out. And Donald became convinced that they were the spirits of enslaved Africans who had died during the Atlantic slave trade.
Oh, my God. Okay, it wasn't just a bunch of speakers buried in Mount Shasta.
No, but very interesting to make that connection. He believed the Bermuda Triangle was haunted by the accumulated suffering of the slave trade for centuries, and that is why it's a black spot. So he devised perhaps the most ambitious exorcism in history. He did rituals that were performed at the Triangle's 3 geographical points in Bermuda, Miami, and Puerto Rico. Prayer services would also be held in conjunction with this in African nations linked to the slave trade and in British ports such as Liverpool and Bristol. And at Horseshoe Bay in Bermuda, Donald completed a 2-hour ceremony before wading into the sea in full clerical robes. 12 days later, something unbelievable happened. Now, we've never talked about the Bermuda Triangle, but it's one to pin. We do know that accidents like plane crashes, sinking of ships, you never see them again. You never hear from them again. You don't know what's happened. The black box is missing, whatever. But 12 days after Donald's exorcism, a Boeing 727 flying from Miami suddenly lost all 3 engines over the Bermuda Triangle. The aircraft plunged 7,000 feet towards the ocean while the passengers and crew believed themselves to be doomed. But without warning, the engines roared back into life, the aircraft recovered, and everyone survived.
That's incredible.
Well, for Donald, that's just not a coincidence. That is
Proof.
proof that the Bermuda Triangle curse had finally been broken.
What do you think?
I don't know. I mean, I've done the research and it comes from a lot of different sources. And I know that there are books that you can reference, but I don't know how much has been embellished.
Over the years, yes.
To be fair, and I do think that Donald, you'll find out more about Donald over on Patreon, but I do think that Donald's self-belief is the strongest part of this magic.
Yes.
If you like.
Well, do you know what? I think there's a few ways you can interpret Don. You could see him as an eccentric, as a mystic, or just a man of God who, as you said, has divine belief in himself. And that is very, very powerful when you have that level of confidence. I was also going to say the Bermuda Triangle organization required across all those different countries.
I know. Well, he had power by then. Yeah.
Well, and he's a powerhouse.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah, he got very well known. It's surprising that I never heard of him before this article in the 14 Times.
Me either.
And I will give you some more links as well for the Patreon to find podcasts and all sorts. But Donald Omand was 79 years old when he died on the 12th of May, 1983. And whether or not you believe he battled actual demons, or if you think he just misinterpreted psychological illnesses, or whether you see him as a great eccentric, one of Britain's great eccentrics, it's difficult not to admire his conviction, because few vicars have ever attempted to cast demons out of lions or vampires or haunted beaches or monster-infested lakes, let alone an entire section of the Atlantic Ocean. So cheers to you, Donald. R.I.P.
R.I.P. And I applaud your tenacity, really. Wow, thank you very much for that story. Never heard of that guy, but I'm curious over on the Patreon to see what else this guy did. So thank you.
Yeah, over on the Patreon, there'll be a bit more Don facts, and also you can hear the rest of the folding stories that we started to read out a couple of episodes ago.
My
Forbidden
God.
Love, which was written by myself and my traveling companions in 1990 about, I think it's a Tibetan monk. So it's a little, I don't know, little on the nose. I haven't read the whole thing until we get together for Patreon, so it's a big surprise to me as well. There's a lot of laughs, so get your asses over there.
Yes, indeed. Oh, well, thank you. And I think we might have just come to the end of the exorcism.
We have exercised our right to leave this episode.
Exercising the bow of us.
Be gone, foul beast.
Oh, my God.
Back to whence you came.
Both of us. Foul beasts.
Both of us.
Okay, really, with that, I think there's only 3 things left to say, Geordie.
Wherever you are.
And whatever you do, just keep
eavesdropping.
Eavesdroppin'.
Eavesdropping, eavesdropping, dropping, eavesdropping, dropping, eavesdropping, eavesdropping,
Dropping, dropping.
eavesdropping.